Morning, everybody. This is the May 29th, 2015 Veterans Land Board meeting. We will come to order. And the first item on the agenda, actually before we do that, I wanted to welcome two guests, Robert Parsons with Gateway Planning and Jennifer Hoppard with OAG for joining us. Thank you for coming out. And then I have the pleasure of swearing in our new board member, Andrew J. Kobos. I understand he has some friends that have joined as well. So we will go ahead and get you sworn in and make it official.
Great.
Repeat after me. I, Andrew J. Kobos,
I, Andrew J. Kobos,
do solemnly swear
that
I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of the Veterans Land Board
of the Veterans Land Board
of the State of Texas,
of the State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now the real work begins. Next item on the agenda is approval of the prior minutes from January 22, 2015 for the Veterans Land Board meeting. Since Mr. Kobos was not a member at the time, I will ask that he abstain from the vote, but we'll ask Mr. Johnson to make a motion to, after he's had a chance to review the minutes, to...
I have read and reviewed them, and I move approval.
That motion will be seconded, and the motion carries unanimously to approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is number 3, which is, as stated, the consideration and possible adoption of a resolution authorizing liquidity facilities with Mizuho Bank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, for the record, I'm Rusty Martin, Director of PSF Investments and Chief Investment Officer. Welcome aboard, Mr. Kobos. We look forward to working with you and having a nice, long, solid relationship.
Thank you.
So this agenda item specifically authorizes the execution of liquidity facilities with Mizuho Bank Limited in connection with bonds that are issued or to be issued in the Veterans Housing Assistance Program and the Veterans Land Program. Each year, the board approves a one-year delegation of authority to staff that covers 3 basic functions. The first one is bond issuance, second is interest rate swap transactions, and the third is new or substitute liquidity facilities. That current authorization expires in July of this year, and at that time there will be a new set of authorization resolutions that will be included on the July VLB meeting agenda. The Attorney General's Office permits a one-year delegation period for each of these types of functions, but since Mizuho is a new liquidity provider to the VLB, in fact it will be on the 2015B transaction that we're going to do in July, and that will be its first transaction with the VLB. Since they're new, there's the potential for there to be some slight variations in the documentation with the existing facilities when compared with those documents. So it's unclear whether the AG would conclude that the new Mizuho facility fits comfortably within the context of that current one-year delegation of authority. Therefore, Bond Counsel always recommends that if the board has a meeting scheduled that's close to such a transaction anyway, that the board specifically approve any facilities with new liquidity providers that occurred during that one-year delegation period. Mizuho has agreed to provide a $125 million facility for this bond transaction. They're doing that for 4 years at 34 basis points per annum, which is significantly below market. Other providers in our platform are currently charging 35 basis points for 3 years and 38 basis points for 4 years. So it's a really good deal for us, and we're happy to have Mizuho on board. Therefore, we're recommending that the board authorize the execution of liquidity facilities with Mizuho Bank Limited in connection with bonds issued or to be issued in the Veterans Land Program or the Veterans Housing Assistance Program, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have no questions, and I move approval.
I'll go ahead and second. Motion is made, seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 3. Next item on the agenda is number 4, as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, approval of this item would authorize the amendment of certain existing bond resolutions also related to bonds previously issued in connection with the Veterans Land Program and the Veterans Housing Assistance Program to provide for the creation of an index or a direct purchase interest rate mode on those bonds. I'll refer to this going forward as a DP mode. We currently have about $380 million of our existing tax-exempt 7-day variable rate demand bonds. The interest rate on which resets weekly is determined by a remarketing agent to a DP mode in which the VRDBs will instead have the interest rate based upon an index that I will describe in a minute, and it would be placed directly with State Street Bank and Trust Company, who currently provides about $320 million in liquidity facilities for VLB bonds. And this transaction would result in not needing to maintain ongoing liquidity facility or remarketing services. The variable rate on the bonds, the DP bonds, would be reset weekly based on a fixed spread over 68% of 1-month LIBOR and determined by the length of the DP period. About $175 million of the DPs would have a 7-year term and the remainder would have a 5-year term. One of the benefits is that in addition to removing the requirement for remarketing, this DP mode also removes the need to extend or attract new liquidity every 3 years or so. And in this particular instance, it also provides significant savings over the length of the DP period. We estimate that given the rates, the spreads that State Street has agreed to accept, which is 33 basis points on the 5-year term and 40 basis points on the 7-year term, that we should receive about $3.6 million in savings over that DP period. In 2013 and 14, we actually converted 100% of all of our taxable VRDBs at that time into a similar type of product. But the market for longer duration tax-exempt bonds was just developing at that time. There really wasn't a market. It's now beginning to develop. This will be one of the first and one of the largest types of transactions like this in the country. And hopefully it will help kickstart the development of a market that becomes deep enough for us to eventually convert all of our tax-exempt bonds also into a DP mode over the next 2 to 3 years. Therefore, I'm recommending that you authorize the amendment of certain existing bond resolutions related to bonds that have previously been issued in the Veterans Housing Assistance Program and the Veterans Land Program to provide for the creation of a DP interest rate mode as I described earlier. On page 2 of the memo, you will see a list of all the bond series that this transaction would be associated with. I'm not going to go through all of those, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is an excellent transaction for us, very innovative and saves money.
Any questions?
I have none.
No questions.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Motion is made. All those in favor? All those against? Motion is made, second, and carried unanimously to approve item number 4. Next item on the agenda is number 5 as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Generally at every VLB meeting we put this same agenda item for discussion. Typically it's a non-action item, but today it is going to be an action item because I'm going to recommend some changes. For several years the base rate in the Veterans Housing Assistance Program has been reset weekly based on a spread ranging between 50 to 65 basis points below a certain Fannie Mae 30-year FHA VA benchmark that used to be published privately on Fannie Mae's website. Recently, that benchmark has become an unreliable indicator of actual VHA VA pricing in the market. Therefore, my group has worked with City Mortgage, who is the administrator on our housing program, to develop a methodology that basically constructs a reasonable, customized benchmark to use in setting our base rate each week. And the memo that's in your package shows you how that benchmark is constructed. Typically what we'll do is we'll start with a spot mid-pricing on a Ginnie Mae 2 security off of a Bloomberg. And then we'll add to that our estimate for our cost on servicing, guarantee, 90-day lock premium, points that are charged on the loan, and then a slight adjustment for FICO score adjustment. So, but basically, what that gives you in the example that's contained on the memo, we had a Ginnie Mae 2 spot price at 272, and then all the additions that I mentioned gave us a base rate, or a constructed benchmark rate of 3.81%. Then from that rate, we would deduct 50 to 65 basis points, depending on what market conditions warranted. So in this case, the VLB base rate would be 3.31%. And then anyone that was qualified for the disabled discount would get 50 basis points off of that. So at the time, in this example, the base rate would have been 331, and the rate for those qualified for the disability discount would have been 281. We plan on keeping all of those adjustments to the benchmark, the servicing, et cetera, as constant as possible. We will review those periodically to make sure that there aren't any adjustments to be made. But basically, this is the model that I'm proposing. We have been using this model for almost 2 months now, and it has really made a difference in where we are positioned with pricing in the market, and has gotten our demand back up to more normalized levels. So this is the model that I'm recommending, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Rusty, how does it differ in basis points from what we'd been doing? Up or down?
Down.
Down?
Yes.
So we're
Rates are
it's more
lower
favorable
because of
to the
that.
veteran.
Yeah, what happened was the benchmark that we were using, and I'm going to be speculating somewhat here. It appears that benchmark was reflective of a desire by Fannie Mae to maybe reduce its exposure to the FHA VA market, which you do by letting your rates go up. So as their rate crept up, ours crept up along with it, and we noticed that our demand was dropping off. So when we finally got into it and tore it apart, we could see that there had become a disconnect at some point in the recent past when that benchmark and what the market really was dictating. So we've gone in and constructed a benchmark that we think more accurately reflects what that market should be. It has resulted in our rates being lower than they would have been if we had continued to use that other benchmark.
Good.
In the line item, Rusty, where it says variable adjustment between 50 and 65 basis points,
Right.
What would be some of the market conditions that would allow for the adjustment to even go as high as 65 basis points in the reduction from the?
Yeah, first of all, let me say we've been using this methodology, that spread, even with the old benchmark, we've been using that spread for a long time. And it really depends on what our demand looks like from kind of a historical perspective. There is a basic trend that we see in our loan demand, and as long as that trend is meeting that basic line, then we'll be somewhere around that 50 basis point mark. But if demand is slowing down for some reason, then we have the flexibility to bump it up. So, I mean, we've been, so far this year, we've been as high as 63 basis points on that spread and as low as 50 basis points. So it really just depends on how is the demand actually flowing compared to historical norms. So recently we've been at 50 basis points, but it will change.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's good. I think it's a good tool, and I would move approval.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 5. And I believe Rusty will be presenting agenda item number 6 as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. This is a non-action item. This is a quarterly investment report for the period ended December 31st, 2014. You should have had a chance to review that. I'm not going to go through all of the information contained in here on economic and market conditions. I'm happy to talk to you offline if you have any questions about those. I'll just point out for the benefit of Mr. Kobos that the investment strategy for this portfolio focuses primarily on providing liquidity and cash flow necessary to meet the demands of the program, which are basically debt service payments and loan purchases. And it focuses secondarily on maximizing total return and is primarily looking at preserving principal with high-quality investment instruments. And the portfolio is only a fixed income portfolio, and it's primarily composed of high-quality commercial paper and short to medium-term treasury, agency, and taxable municipal bonds. The duration is typically between 3 and 4 years. At the end of this period, it had increased from 4 years to 5.2 years, but that's primarily because there was a big reduction in seasonal short-term investments to pay debt service, which happens every June 1st and December 1st. So that increase in duration is normal, and what we would target and expect would be about a 3.5 to 4 year duration on the portfolio most of the time. So it puts it in kind of a medium-term fixed income portfolio. If you look at page 3, you can see the comparison of the returns on the portfolio with a benchmark. So this is the page that has 3 tables on it that looks like this. And just to go through and tell you how the portfolio performed compared to the benchmark, for that quarter into December 31st, the portfolio returned 1.58% versus a 0.27% on the benchmark, so 131 basis points better. Kind of the one that really opens your eyes is the total, our 1 year return on the portfolio was 5.43%. The benchmark return was 0.51%. So
Great.
we beat the benchmark by 492 basis points on a 1 year basis. And then the table at the bottom shows you the historical returns for the past 3, 5, 10 year and inception periods. And as you can see, we, even though this is not a total return focused portfolio, we have handily beat the benchmarks. 3 years, 151 basis points, 5 years, 210 basis points, 10 years, 84 basis points, and inception since return, which started in 99, so that's about a 15-year period, 91 basis points outperformance on the benchmark. So as I said, the portfolio was really designed to make sure that we have the money we need to fund loan purchases and to pay debt service. And the total return function is kind of a secondary concern, but we have done very well with that portfolio. That's a non-action item, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I've done.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is number 7, as stated.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Charlotte Mumford, Deputy Director of Loan Operations. There is one appeal before the board today. That appeal is for track number 14516 for Leonard Hall. Mr. Hall has submitted funds to reinstate his account. He had some issues with his VA disability check that was pulled and reinstated, so he is now in a better financial position and is able to make the payments on the account. Staff is recommending that we allow him to proceed with payments on his account.
Any questions?
I have none.
No.
I will move approval.
I'll go ahead and second. All those in favor? All those against?
Aye.
Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 7. Next item on the agenda is number 8, as stated.
There were 19 tracts offered during the forfeited land sale online bidding period of March the 9th through April the 28th of 2015. We received a total of 200 bids, resulting in 17 high bids. Staff is requesting that the board award all high bids that meet qualifications for the land program. The remaining tracts will roll over to the Type 2 program, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board?
No.
I'll go ahead and move to approve that recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is made, second, and carried unanimously to approve item number 8. And next item on the agenda is number 9 as stated.
Staff is requesting that the board take forfeiture action on the resolutions before you, except accounts where sufficient funds are received to avoid that action. 5 accounts are being presented to the board for forfeiture action today. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions at this time?
No questions, move.
Second.
All those in favor? All those against? Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 9.
Could, Commissioner, just for the record, for those that are watching remotely and may watch the webcast later, just make sure we get the voice votes
The vote.
on record. Just make sure we clean everything up.
So I'll go ahead and ask for the motion to approve consideration of the request to forfeit the land accounts. I'll need a second.
Second.
Motion is made. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 9. Next item on the agenda is number 10.
Staff is requesting the board take action on the resolution before you. The resolution lists accounts to be considered for order for sale action today. These 19 accounts will become the tracks for the next forfeited land sale. We're requesting the board's authority to pull any account that meets all requirements for reinstatement. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have no questions, and I will move approval.
These are going to go up for auction? Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. All right, no questions.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second of that
I'll
motion?
second.
Motion is all those in favor and all those against? All those in favor of this motion?
I move
Aye.
in favor, yes.
Yes. All those against? Motion is made, second, and carried unanimously to approve item number 10. Next item on the agenda is number 11 as stated.
Staff is requesting the board set the next quarterly electronic forfeited land sale bidding period to begin June the 8th, 2015, with a bidding period deadline of July the 28th, 2015 at 5 p.m.
All motion?
I'll go ahead and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is made, seconded, and carried unanimously to approve item number 11.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is number 12. Mr. McLemore.
For the record, I'm Bill McLemore, the Executive Secretary of the Board, and I stand ready to present 2 non-action reports that you have received. The first report is the Veterans Land Board Marketing and Loan Operations Production Report. I think good news in this report is that we're on track to meet our expected goals for the year, particularly in land and home improvement. In the housing program, remember our objective in the housing program, our strategy is to simply meet demand, not to try to create demand. If they can find a better deal out there, we allow them to go ahead and do that. The good news that Rusty just brought to you was they've adjusted that model, and we are seeing an increase in the number of veterans that are choosing the Veterans Housing Assistance Program. So I think you'll see those numbers close, and those are predicted numbers. That's not our goal to achieve. That's what we predicted we would achieve this year. Bringing that new model in, we've seen week to week an increase in the number. Still isn't as good as it was last year, but it's catching up. Do you have any questions?
None for me.
The second report you have there from Loan Operations is the Coryell County, Texas Tire Tract update that you've received. This is our plan, and to give you an update of what we're doing to try to remediate about 600, an estimated 600,000 to 900,000 illegally dumped tires on a forfeited land tract that we own up in Coryell County. Bottom line is we have an intergovernmental approach to that, working with 3 Corps in Fort Hood and the Deputy Commanding General up there, Coryell County, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, to get this tract remediated and put it back in for sale. We've met with all of those officials face to face. The chief clerk is also scheduled to meet with the DCG Fort Hood about the 3rd of this month. We think we have a good plan. We've got an RFP that'll go out probably this week, and a memorandum of understanding is prepared that the chief clerk will take forward to put a broad, develop the broad responsibilities for achieving this cleanup. Do we have any questions?
Where are the tigers and the tires and the trash being taken?
Where are they?
They're on the land right now, right? And what does the remediation entail?
There's an estimated 600 to 900,000 tires. Some of those tires have been put into a ditch and with dirt that's been moved over to them, trying to make a little dam around a lake in this 25-acre tract. It is in a U shape around that lake. It's going to be pretty difficult, particularly with the rain right now. That's why Fort Hood and their assets, particularly the Engineer Brigade and the Transportation Battalion, with those 18-wheelers, has got some four-wheel drive capability. If we're to begin recovery and then transportation of those to a disposal site, we're trying to keep this simple. Rather than trying to prepare the tires on site for disposal, we're simply trying to get Fort Hood with the Engineer Brigade and those scoop loaders to scoop the tires up, and they can take all the tires that have no rims with them. They can take them with dirt and mud inside of them. So our goal is to try to keep it simple, allow Fort Hood to remove the tire, recover the tires, place them on those 18-wheeler stake and platform trailers, transport them to a disposal site, the nearest disposal site in Texas. They've tentatively agreed to this. If we have to prepare the tires, meaning shred the tires before a disposal site would take them, they could either be on site there. That's going to be an awful crowded operation under a 25-acre site with 18-wheelers and then a shredding machine. And so one of the things we're trying to do to keep it simple, recover, place on the transportation vehicles, transport them to the nearest site, and have them to take them to dispose of them. That may cost us a bit more because usually you can dispose of shredded tires because they'll burn them for fuel. But if they aren't prepared, then they're going to charge you by the ton. We've had estimates somewhere between $35 a ton and $135 a ton. And that's the purpose of the RFP for right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
What a mess.
Yes, sir. That was one of the reasons, I think, why we made a wise decision to quit doing contracts for deed, because at the end, we don't have the title now. That title is with the veteran. This started back in 1998. It's a long history behind this. And I think we've learned our lesson. We're paying a lot of attention to all of those contract for deed sites. And remember, we have about 6,000 of those around the state. So it is tough to try to do that. Commissioners brought in a young team of outreach folks that are focused on some of those 20 acres larger sites we have, just to monitor those to make sure try to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Can you share with us, Bill, the latest kind of on your viewpoint on the timeline for the RFP process and how long the process may take?
The RFP process, once that gets posted, should last for about 2 weeks, about 15 days. We've cut it down from 30 days. The fact of the matter is there aren't a lot of providers here in Texas, and they're all aware of this site. And there's only very few that have the disposal capability. to do that. So we expect to get a response from the RFP relatively quick. Timeline after that, I think the chief clerk will know more when we come back with this final visit with the DCG, with a memo that outlines the responsibilities of 3 Corps, the responsibilities of Coryell County, the responsibility of the VLB, and the responsibility of the Texas of TCEQ in terms of making sure that when we've completed this remediation, we're going to meet all the environmental requirements for Texas, and we can sell the land. That land is only valued at about $125,000 cleaned up. Right now, it's about a $1 million to $3 million liability. So we're trying to mitigate loss to the fund, but we've got to be good stewards of this. It did happen under our watch. We've changed our practice in terms of contracts for deed. That means that if you do something like this, and in the end, you're going to end up with the title to it, and we have the title to that, so we have the responsibility to clean it up. I think an important lesson that TECQ learned also in this was, particularly with where VLB land is involved with contracts for deed, don't give permits for this unless you've checked with us first. And I doubt we would have allowed a permit at the time.
Appreciate the update.
Thanks, sir.
Now we'll move to agenda item 12C, regarding a grant request for potential new veterans home in Richmond, Texas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is John Berkeley. I'm the director of the Texas State Veterans Homes and Cemeteries. Item 12C, this briefing is informational only and does not require any board action. On April 10th, 2015, the VLB submitted a grant request to the United States Department of Veterans Affairs for funding of the construction of a 9th state veterans home. The State Veterans Home is to be located in the city of Richmond, Fort Bend County, and will serve the veterans of the greater Houston area. The grant is for funding for the construction of a 120-bed skilled nursing facility. Our grant submission is just the first step in the process. The VA releases the funding priority list in December, at which time we will be notified if our project is selected for funding. The actual grant letters, award letters, are released late summer, and we would anticipate construction would begin in October of 2016. Are there any questions at this time?
None.
None here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12D, again, informational only and does not require board action. Texas State Veterans Program will be issuing a request for proposal for the pharmaceutical services for all 8 state veterans homes. Our current provider is PharmAmerica, who has been providing the services to our homes since 2006, when the last RFP was issued. Are there any questions?
I have none.
As far as the timing, do you think later this summer we'll get kind of good feedback, good group of vendors potentially? Or?
For the pharmacy?
Correct.
Oh, absolutely. Recently went to the Leading Age Convention, and there are multiple pharmaceutical companies all expressed an interest in participating in the RFP. So we should have a very competitive bid process, and we should be getting much better pricing for our veterans.
What all is entailed under this RFP? What is defined as pharmaceutical services?
It will be all of our service-connected disabled veterans and our Medicare veterans residents. We have to get those pharmaceutical services for them, their medications, from an outside source. We cannot get them from the VA. The majority of our medications do come from the VA, and also first dosage medications have to come from an outside pharmacy before we can start ordering from the VA. So it's approximately a $3 to $3.5 million contract.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you very much.
Once again, I want to sincerely welcome Andrew to the board. It's with great pride that we welcome you, particularly in light of your military service and continuing the tradition of having all of our board members serve in the military. So we welcome you and look forward to working with you. And there being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned.